The last thing my mother said to me through the glass was, "We'll be here when you get out." She kept that promise for 11 years. I was 26 when it happened. A rainy November night, a delivery run I shouldn't have taken while exhausted, and a cyclist who never saw my headlights in time. He didn't survive. I was charged with vehicular manslaughter and sentenced to 12 years. I remember the judge's voice, flat and final, and I remember turning around in the courtroom to see my mother's hand pressed against her mouth and my father staring at the floor like he couldn't lift his eyes to look at me. I grew up the only child of two people who built their whole lives around mine. My mother kept every school photo in a drawer organized by year. My father used to drive 40 minutes out of his way just to pick me up from soccer practice so I wouldn't have to take the bus. When relatives asked what they were proudest of, they never talked about their jobs or their house. They talked about me. And then I took something from the world that could never be given back, and I became the reason my parents had to explain to neighbors why their daughter wasn't around anymore. Prison didn't break me the way people expect. The food was bad, the nights were long, but none of that touched me the way visitation Sundays did. Every single week, without fail, my parents made the 2-hour drive. My mother brought updates about the garden, about cousins getting married, about nothing important, just to give me something normal to hold on to. My father mostly sat quietly and listened, but he never missed a visit. Not once in 11 years, not even the winter he had pneumonia, which I only found out about after the fact because he refused to let my mother tell me while it was happening. I built my entire sentence around one promise to myself. When I got out, I would spend every day making up for lost time. I would take my mother to the ocean, since she always said she wanted to retire near the water. I would sit with my father on the porch, the way we used to before everything fell apart. I would be the daughter I hadn't gotten to be for over a decade. The day I walked out, my mother was waiting at the gate and she hugged me so hard I nearly lost my balance. My father stood a few feet behind her, hands in his pockets, smiling in a way that didn't quite reach his eyes. I told myself it was just emotion. It wasn't until we got home that my mother sat me down at the kitchen table and told me what she'd been hiding in every phone call for the past 3 years. My father had early onset dementia. It started small, she said. Misplaced glasses, repeated questions. Then it became forgetting what year it was, forgetting how to get home from the grocery store 2 blocks away. She never told me because she didn't want me carrying that weight behind bars, unable to do anything but worry. The next morning, I found him on the porch, in the same spot he used to wait for me after school. I sat down beside him and he looked over at me politely, the way you'd look at someone you'd met once at a party. "You have kind eyes," he said. "Do I know you from somewhere?" I told him I was his daughter. He nodded slowly, like he was trying to make the words fit somewhere in his mind, and then he changed the subject to the weather. Some mornings were better than others. Some days he'd call me by name without hesitation, tell me to grab my coat before it got cold, ask if I'd eaten breakfast yet, like no time had passed at all. Other days I was just a woman sitting too close to him on his porch. 3 weeks after I came home, my mother pulled out an old photo album, hoping it might help. He flipped through it slowly, pausing on a picture of me at 9 years old, missing my front teeth, grinning at the camera on my birthday. He held it for a long moment and smiled. "She used to run to the door every day when I got home from work," he said softly. "Best part of my day, seeing that little face." Then he closed the album and set it on the table between us, never once looking up to realize the little face he was remembering was sitting right beside him, close enough to hold his hand. If only he'd known it was still hers to hold.